on to some scary movie.
You like scary movies?
Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Look at me, Damien. It's all for you.
Kill her, Mommy. Kill her.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
This is my boomstick. Here's Johnny.
I have to return some videotapes.
We'll tear your soul apart.
Hello and welcome to a buzzing episode of All Things Horror. I'm your host Ben and I'm joined here with my co-host Matt. If you're new to the show, each week we choose a movie to break down and review. We give it our honest opinions and rate it from 1 to 10. We have a brief spoiler-free chat about the film before we head into the plot and discuss our favourite and least favourite parts of the movie. And if you stick around until the very end, we'll finish off with some interesting trivia and a fun little game that I've created. This week we're going to be discussing the Texas Chain Saw Massacre from 1974. It's about 5 friends that run out of gas while driving to their grandfather's grave, I think it was, and one by one they're tormented and killed off by a chainsaw-wielding killer and his psychopathic family. Yeah, I didn't realise this. I thought it was just directed, but it's written, directed and produced by Tobe Hooper.
Yeah, co-written with Kim Henkel.
That's right.
Who went on to pretty much teach writing. Like I think it was the University of Texas, I believe. So like went in a completely different direction.
Oh wow! All right.
To Tobe Hooper.
We covered one of Tobe Hooper's films not too long ago, The Funhouse.
Mm-hmm.
I think literally it's only... Oh no, I have seen another one. I was going to say it's this one, The Funhouse, Poltergeist, and I think The Toolbox Murders, I think he did.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and Life Force as well, which isn't really a horror, but...
Right, okay. Yeah, but I think they're the only ones I've seen. They're all completely different though. He hasn't really got his style. Some directors or whatever have their own kind of like style of work, but yeah, he's a bit all over the place. But there was that. There
he was
was
his own
that,
worst enemy. I think we said this last time, didn't we?
Yeah, there was that thing
ways.
about Poltergeist. Though. I'm not actually sure if he had much to do with that. I think he was more of a puppet on a string. I think it was more Steven Spielberg with Poltergeist, but
I think as well. I think once you've had a little bit of success. You do get more choice, but then if the next one doesn't hit, then you kind of go back down the down the pecking order a bit more, and you don't have as much choice. And I think by the end of his career, he was just doing pretty much anything for hire.
right.
This is kind of a sad end, really, as his career kind of wound down. I don't think he wanted it to, but yeah. So it's kind of a sad story in a way, but I guess this is a little bit, it made me think of like George Romero and like starting off with Night of the Living Dead and completely changing genre. Like I feel like this is the same for Tobe Hooper. So in a way, although he did have Poltergeist and Romero did have like Dawn of the Dead, it's not always, it's really hard to follow, isn't it, when you have such a huge iconic film like.
Yeah, well, I didn't really look much into his other stuff, but I'm assuming this was probably his first film he did in '74. Right. Okay. Did he go on to do any others, like the second one or the third one, or?
So he did. I think he did this. He did the second, didn't he? Which I prefer it. I saw it first, so maybe that's the reason. But I found the second one like it's completely different tonally, isn't it? It's like a dark comedy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he directed and wrote. But no, he didn't write the second one. Obviously, a lot of the stuff from the first film that he came up with was used, but it was he directed the second one. I think it's it's kind of reminded me a little bit of how like John Carpenter didn't really want to do exactly the same thing over and over again, and did like Halloween 3 differently, and then everybody didn't like it, and then he has to go back to doing what he did before. Whereas Tobe Hooper didn't really get to do that. But I suppose if you're thinking, you know, those two Texas Chainsaw Massacre films, and Poltergeist, those are such huge hits, more than what a lot of people would have in their entire career, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I was going to ask you, because it absolutely baffles me that you hadn't seen this, but you'd seen the second one, and you like all the other kind of culty films like Chopping Mall, Basket Case, Frankenhooker, Slumber Party Massacre, but you hadn't seen this one. Was there like a reason why, or you just kind of put it off and never got round to it, or just scared?
Scared. No, I don't. After watching it, I don't think it's like it's not. For example, it's not like as upsetting as a film like I Spit on Your Grave, or and it hasn't got like any animal trauma in it like some that have upset me. I don't know whether I think it was maybe I'm not a big fan of like cannibalistic films, and I thought it was going to be more cannibalistic than it was. Yeah. I'm not a big fan of dirt, and it kind of made me feel like, from watching it, like sweaty and dirty.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And that kind of, I'm not a big fan of like sort of hillbilly, sweaty, dirty kind of films. So like The Hills of Eyes and stuff like that. Actually, I think The Hills of Eyes probably upset me more than this.
Yeah.
But I guess this has a real, like, it wasn't what I was expecting, let's put it that way. Like, but I appreciate it as a landmark film. So a lot of the things that I like in other films, you probably weren't going to get them without this film being made.
Well, that's the thing as well, because like everyone sees this as like a huge iconic, and I think people have in their head it's a lot worse than it actually is. I think it's more like the idea of this film is more disgusting than what you actually see. There's actually not that much gore. It's more like disturbing scenarios and like the acting that just made it more horrific rather than things you actually see in the film.
Oh yeah, and like I think that the voiceover, and obviously it's got a little bit in common with like Ed Gein, and so there's like a bit of a real, like it's almost before Blair Witch, like that kind of, we're trying to make this feel as real as possible, which in 74, again, it's a bit like a few of those films that are in the 70s that are really upsetting, like the Wes Craven ones and this, and I Spit on Your Grave. They're all kind of trying to sort the mental anguish of Vietnam, like bodies in being chopped up in a million different ways, and people's bodies being used in ways that you wouldn't, you know, even imagine unless you're in like a horrific war. And I think that a lot of this is like a response to that. And I think a lot of the horror films that, like the iconic horror films of those times, are kind of linked to Vietnam, which is a bit of a theme to what we've said when we've watched other things as well. I actually found the guy who hitchhikes, I can't think what his character is called. Is he just called Hitchhiker?
I think he's just called the Hitchhiker. Yeah,
I find him much scarier and more worrying than Leatherface.
yeah. It's funny actually, because you mentioned this makes you feel quite like hot and sweaty, and I think I might have mentioned it before when I was trying to explain this film to you, that every time I watch this I feel like I need to take a shower afterwards because it's so like dirty and gritty and nasty. But we'll probably mention this like throughout, but like it seems pretty well known from like all the cast and crew that the conditions on set was not great. Like it was like the middle of a summer heat wave, and it was like over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, whatever that is in Celsius. But
it's Texas.
Yeah,
so it's like
really hot.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. No showers or no kind of spare clothes or anything. They were just, I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks just slugging it out.
Lots of running as well. Lots of running around. And
yeah.
Lots of screaming. Like, I don't think I've ever known a film with so much screaming in it.
Yeah.
Like, I sent you that video of me watching it, and she's screaming, and my dog was just like fast asleep. She just doesn't care about horror films. Like, they don't bother her. So the only horror film that ever bothered her was when she was a puppy. She woke up and she started howling when she was watching The Thing. But like, she screams. Marilyn Burns screams more in this film than I think anyone has ever screamed in a film before.
I think you're right.
Or after.
Yeah,
I can't think of anything else where,
I
because
think you're right.
even like my wife came into the room, she was just like, "Will you just turn that down?" Like, she was getting irritated by all the screaming, which is quite traumatic, I suppose.
It is. I mean, Sally's known as like one of the top kind of scream queens. I wouldn't be surprised if you googled scream queen, she would be in like the top 5.
Yeah, because you think like Jamie Lee Curtis, like Laurie, doesn't really scream a lot. She's more pragmatic. Like, she's more like about fighting back or thinking on her feet, whereas like Marilyn Burns, whether she was just really stressed and scratched to shit and hot and fed up and was just screaming, or whether she was kind of wound up by Tobe Hooper to do so, as Sally just never stopped screaming from pretty much 2/3 of the film. She's screaming non-stop right till the last moment, and then she's screaming and laughing.
It's funny you mentioned Laurie, actually, like, 'cause I've made a little note here about like Halloween, because I found this quite similar to Halloween in the fact that they're both like 70s slashers, and they both had little to no gore, but it's more like the terror of the antagonist just chasing you as much as, and it doesn't matter how fast you run or where you run to, he's always going to get you. And I noticed as well, like, after I made that little note, that that this was the highest grossing independent horror film for 4 years until Halloween came out in 1978. So that was pretty interesting.
And you're right. I like the way it's made. I think that obviously that these are really great filmmakers who have, like a lot of the films we discuss, with a very low budget, have made some incredible, like, quality films with very little money. Just like, they're almost like circus ringmasters, just kind of getting everybody in the circus to kind of work to their tune and get the most out of the people that they had around them. And also, they're lucky sometimes to have those people around them who are also very talented, like John Carpenter's group of friends and Sam Raimi's group of friends. These are all people who have actually gone on and done really well themselves.
Yeah.
Really lucky sometimes just to have. It was like when I was talking to Jed Shepard about Host. He was saying what happens is, like, it's not that you start off with this group of 10 and 15 people who are incredibly talented. It's that the ones who aren't as talented kind of drop off, or the ones who aren't as motivated drop off, and then you just that's why it seems like you're with the same people over again. So maybe that's what happened with Tobe Hooper. Well, then I guess he never really was able to get that going and do, like, say, he didn't have anything to do with anything beyond Texas Chain Saw Massacre 2 because it didn't do very well. And I don't know, he didn't do any of the Poltergeist films, did he?
Not that I know of, no.
So I know he had his problems. Maybe that had something to do with it. Maybe he was, because Steven Spielberg's obviously a mentor to him, as he even directed an episode of Steven Spielberg's Amazing Stories, which I used to watch when I was a kid. I think were all really, really good, like a real mixture of genres. So he's tried to give him chances, but the next thing he directed after Texas Chain Saw Massacre 2 was like TV series The Equalizer, and then an episode of Freddy's Nightmares, and then TV movies. So he's a massive fall from grace after Texas Chain Saw Massacre 2.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether because people weren't ready for it. I think it was ahead of its time.
Yeah.
Comedy horror, in 1986. Okay, there'd been a few but people were waiting for another Texas Chainsaw Massacre like the first one, I think.
Well, I mean, they've gone on to do how many remakes and reboots and sequels? I think they did.
And a lot of them aren't very good. The ones that I've seen, anyway.
I think the first remake was actually a really good remake, and I actually did a poll pick on the socials not that long ago, asking what their favourite horror remake was, and that was actually voted as number one.
That's not the 2013 one, is it?
Oh, I couldn't tell you.
I saw that one, the one with Alexandra Daddario in it.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
I saw that one. I wasn't that taken with that one. I get so confused with them. I've seen bits here and there. The only one that really stood out was the second one, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
But
can you believe that Tobe Hooper actually intended for this to be a PG rating? Like, he purposely made it not gory, no nudity, and hardly any bad language, which it don't. But they went straight in with an X rating, so he had to cut it down a little and just settle for an R rating. But he actually wanted it to be a PG.
But with a name like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, they've already made up their mind before you've even shown them the film, I'm sure. So you might as well. I mean, it's worked out quite well, but still, yeah. I guess maybe his thought was about making as much money as possible and getting it in the drive-ins, getting it in the theaters. But I guess it worked out all right in the end. But yeah, it's a bit of a funny. There must have been a money reason for that. Surely that's the only reason I can think of.
Yeah, probably. Anyway, all right. Should we jump into the plot? I'll hit that spoiler warning. I've got so much trivia, so I've had to put a load in the plot. All right, let me get that spoiler warning.
Spoiler warning.
Okay, right. So the film starts off in a graveyard where we learn that someone has been stealing remains, and we see a rotting corpse on like a monument, which all the locals found. Then we meet our main characters, 5 friends in a minivan on a little road trip. Sally, Jerry, Pam, Kirk and Franklin. They drive past a slaughterhouse where Franklin gives everyone quite a history lesson on animal slaughter. And they pick up a hitchhiker who creeps everyone out, talking about his family who have experience with animal slaughter. Things get a little tense after the group refused to pay him for like a photo that he took of them. So he attacks Franklin with his own little pocket knife. And they kick him out the van, and he smears like his blood on the side of the van. I think there was supposed to be like a symbol that was on the side of the van. Everyone was saying.
Oh, right. I didn't spot that.
Yeah, I think when they stopped for petrol, they said, "Oh, it looks like a symbol or something." And I think there's supposed to be something
it's
in
the
it.
scariest bit of the film for me.
The hitchhiker.
Yeah. Stuck in a van with a guy like that. It's like being on the last train back with a load of idiots you can't escape.
Yeah. So
it's horrible.
Yeah, so as a first viewing, what are you thinking so far? Because it had quite a cool little like intro, like camera snap-ins, showing some like body parts, and then you get your first kind of like slow pan back from that rotting corpse on a gravestone, and yeah, there's quite a bit to take in that first 10 minutes.
Yeah, I thought it was like the initial stuff with all the dismembering and things like that. I was like, oh, okay, so this is going to be like a lot of cannibal stuff. And then when realized it was like a sort of going, I don't know what you call it really, where you go into a graveyard and you kind of destroy everything and and kind of have no respect for the dead kind of thing. So I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. It's maybe like more more like a, I can't think of the right word, but more like a you've cut all this out, but but yeah, basically I just thought it was a strange start, and the rest of the film didn't really go in that direction. I thought it might be about like ritual sacrifices and things like that, but it didn't. And then when they get in the car obviously there's the bit with the guy in the wheelchair. Is it Mike? Is it called Mike?
Franklin.
Frank. He falls down, which is like a bit of a probably slight comedic moment. I don't know. But the guy in the car. Well, one thing I did like John Larroquette's voiceover. I thought that made it feel very real.
Ah, yes, yes.
I think the voiceover works really well at the beginning. I don't know whether people did that around the time, but it worked really well. I think, like I said, The Hitchhiker is like that kind of Charles Manson insanity, rambling, smiling is so scary when someone's like that. Like, if there was ever a kid at school who sat there doing something weird and was smiling at you, you'd be like, stay away from him. Had a fascination with knives or what have you.
Yeah.
So yeah, it made me feel like, oh, this is quite. Once we got past the ritual stuff at the beginning, I was like, oh, this is quite found footage.
Yeah. People normally complain when there's no like proper kind of character development and the story's kind of like basic. However, this is actually what I love about this film. I'm normally one of those people. I like having a bit of backstory. I like having some character development, but I don't think this needs it that much. You know what's going to happen. They ain't going to be sticking around for very long. No. And that was kind of my beef with the newest Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. I think it's just called Texas Chainsaw. I don't know, whatever the newest one on Netflix was.
The one that was on Netflix. Yeah. The one where he's a celebrity chef.
Yeah, that was my beef about that film. There was too much backstory. It took it too far away from what Texas Chainsaw Massacre actually is, and this is what it is. Just a straight slasher, cat and mouse chase. You know what's happening.
Yeah, it didn't need that in the new. Like, we're not that interested in the. We're not that interested in the backstory. These people are here by chance. Like, they're here by chance, and we may need to know a little bit of the backstory of why these people are doing what they're doing. But even then, you don't want to go into it too far. This is the thing when you start making sequels, isn't it? It's like we said about Michael Myers. Like, the more we know about him, the less mystique there is.
Yeah.
So, like, we don't want to know too much, but we'll have to add. There has to be something. There has to be something different to open up the world, so to speak. But then equally, you don't want that because that's not what was successful the first time. But you can't just remake the same film again. So it's tricky. But like in this one, I think is the benefit of it's not a sequel. So they don't have to give you this full. Like, it's not like they're going, oh, well, we must build this world because there's going to be 8 sequels. They don't need to. Like, these people are just people who happen to be driving there.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's how most bad stuff happens. It's usually people who weren't expecting it, and they're usually the victims, and they don't know why they're the victims.
Yeah.
It just happens.
So they stop off for some fuel, but there's none available at the station, so the group explore a nearby abandoned house. Kirk and Pam leave and discover another nearby house running a gas-powered generator. Hoping to get some, Kirk just enters the house, because that's what they do apparently. They just walk into people's houses.
Yeah, just wander around.
A large man wearing a mask made of skin attacks and kills Kirk with a hammer. And when Pam goes in looking for him, she finds hundreds of human and animal bones. The man jumps out and grabs her and chucks her up on a meat hook. And he starts up a chainsaw and chops Kirk's body up as Pam watches. And later on in the evening, Jerry starts searching for Pam and Kirk. When he enters the house, he finds Pam's nearly dead body in a freezer. But Leatherface attacks and also kills Jerry with a hammer. Blows him right to the head. He made a quick time of killing these people off. There's already like 3 down.
Yeah, we didn't need to know that much about them.
yeah, that's what I mean. Like, yeah. But, I guess...
We have to be like, whoever survives, oh, they were their sister or some relative, or they were a baby that was taken from them. And, it's just like, No, there were none of those things.
No. 5 friends on their way, stopped off, and that's the situation they're in. You don't need to know any more than that. But yeah, I guess trespassing wasn't really a problem in the 70s back in Texas.
Like in America where guns are just just so easy to get a hold of. I wouldn't be just wandering into somebody's house.
Yep. Well, even more so back then, I would imagine.
Yeah.
70s Texas.
Yeah, and like in the middle of nowhere, they've definitely got guns to deal with. Like even if they're not gun enthusiasts, they've got guns for like rats and coyotes and all kinds of things.
And chainsaws. Yeah, apparently Gunnar Hansen, the guy who plays Leatherface, he hit his head on the doorways quite a lot and other stuff that are in the way during shooting because the mask that he was wearing like really limited his peripheral vision. And he was wearing massive like 3-inch heels to make him look bigger than he actually was. So he was just bumping into things left, right and centre all the way.
Oh, blimey.
Yeah.
Probably make him more angry.
Yeah. And I think that was another thing as well. Like we haven't got to it yet, but when he's chasing Sally through the woods, he's gone on record to say that she was a really slow runner, and chasing her was quite hard because he had to like keep like stopping and taking sharper turns to kind of slow himself down so he weren't catching up too quick.
I wonder if that's the reason why he was spinning around, or whether the spinning around was just feels like that was put in there by the director to get a really cool shot. Because every time he spins around, that looks really cool.
I think that was another thing that he just kind of like improvised.
Oh wow! Well, that's iconic because that's what you think of, isn't it? Just like wildly spinning around.
I think what was in the script, what Tobe told him to do was kind of like stamp his feet in anger that she got away. But he just like went off on one and started swinging the chainsaw around, and
that's interesting.
Yeah, which like you say, like that's kind of like probably the scene that people think of. You think,
and it's almost like a picture, like a work of art. You've got the hazy colours in the background, and the sort of the landscape, and him spinning around, and it's almost like an amazing piece of cinematography. It's almost like something you'd see in. I'm trying to think of an example. Like, trying to think of a really good cinematographer. Maybe like the really long one with Brad Pitt, the really long title, The Coward, Jesse James by the Coward, Robert Ford. I can't think what he's called. It's driving me mad. But the the cinematographer, Roger Deakins, who did that, did all these. He did. My brain is just not working today. But he did Blade Runner, the modern Blade Runner. He did Oh Brother Where Art Thou. He did some of Fargo. Like those things, when you think of them as almost like a painting. And I think of him spinning that around looks like a painting.
Yeah.
So it was completely by accident.
yeah, it was just accident. It was just off the cuff. So now it's nighttime. Sally and Franklin start heading towards the house, and then Leatherface just kind of jumps out on them and kills Franklin with a chainsaw. He chases Sally into the house, where she finds a very old, seemingly dead man. Leatherface continues chasing Sally all the way back to the gas station and then kind of like vanishes. But the gas station worker comforts Sally for a moment. But then he starts being a bit weird and chucks a burlap sack over her head and chucks her in his van and takes her back to the house, where apparently he lives, and the hitchhiker from earlier and Leatherface, they're all one big happy family. And the hitchhiker, we learn as well, like he was the person that was like the grave robber from the beginning. So that's a very that's what I was talking about earlier when she was running through the woods and stuff. But that was a very cat and mouse situation. Lots of running, trapping, escaping, hiding, more running, falling. That scene as well. I don't know if you know this. I know you said she was quite scratched up, but she actually got quite badly hurt on the branches when she was running through all the woods. Like, apparently all the blood that was on her shirt was actually her blood.
Oh, blimey. So
yeah.
Not only was she a slow runner, she was clumsy as well.
Yeah. What did you think of all that bit?
Well,
it's
certainly
just
the
those
bit with
two
all the family and it's scary. Like, I think there's something scary about them not all sat around the table. Like, yeah, that's the scariest bit is when you're in. I think is in films like this is when you're inside with them and you're trapped. Whether it's like Last House on the Left or whether they're trapped inside the caravan in The Hills of Eyes, or the motorhome or whatever it is. Like these things are always, and once they're outside, you kind of breathe a little bit because you're like, right, you've got a chance when you're outside. Even you can run. Yeah, it's like run, bitch. You know, like Scary Movie. But yeah. I imagine that's what it's like in every American cinema when there's a horror film. There's people shouting, "Run, bitch!"
Yeah.
Which would drive me mad. I'd be like, shh.
Oh, I can't stand it when people talk in the cinema. I wouldn't get on well in American cinema. Bless you.
Excuse me. Got excited.
So yeah, now we got the house scene. So they're in the house and they find out that... Bless you. Yeah, they're all sat around the table. Leatherface and the hitchhiker, they're brothers, and they bring Grandpa downstairs, and they cut Sally's finger so that the Grandpa can suck the blood out of her finger.
Little taste.
Yeah.
Like a little snifter.
Yeah, and when they're all sat around the table, that's when they decide that it's time to kill her. They try to include Grandpa, but his grip is weak and he keeps dropping the hammer. And Sally breaks free and makes a run for it, and she manages to get out onto the road, and an oncoming car hits the hitchhiker and kills him. And then a truck driver stops and actually attacks Leatherface with a wrench. I think he chucks it at his face. And that makes him accidentally drop his saw onto his own leg, and Leatherface actually saws his own leg a little bit. So he's limping around, and Sally... Yeah, Sally's covered in blood and flags down a passing pickup truck where she jumps in the back and narrowly escaping Leatherface, and she's laughing hysterically as they drive off, and like you said earlier, Leatherface starts flailing his chainsaw around, really frustrated that she got away.
Do you think when he cuts himself that he responds not enough, or like... Do you know what I mean? Like, if I'd be like, I'd be done.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. He's like superhuman Bane style.
Yeah.
Strength. But...
I don't know, because he is kind of like, he's like an animal man, isn't he? He's like a beast man. He doesn't talk or anything. He just kind of makes noises and grunts and squeals. It's like a big pig, you know?
Yeah.
But, yeah. Also, another little fact, that scene where Leatherface cuts what's her face, Sally's finger, that was legit. Like,
oh wow!
Yeah, it was supposed to be fake, but the tube that shot the fake blood out, it kept clogging up, and after a 27-hour day of filming, he'd had enough, so he just cut her finger.
Oh wow, that's terrible.
I know. He openly admits it. He's done interviews and he said like the conditions that it all was, he got to the point where he just really didn't care, and that was like the final bit of filming, so he just wanted it to get done, so he just did it. He'd really had enough, and he thought, if I just do it, it'll be done then. So he did. He was desperate.
Sounds it was not really his choice, is it?
No. So yeah, that is it. So let's jump into our ratings. What are you going to rate this one out of 10? 1 to 10, hammers to the head.
I was going back and forth between two numbers. I like the framing of the blue skies in it, the vastness. I like the feeling of isolation in this, the heat, the sweat. I like the angles. I like the lack of music. The only music you hear is really in the car or in the truck. When one of the scariest moments I think as well is where she's crying and howling, and they all start howling and crying too, just like making almost like having fun.
Oh yeah, which
shows their sort of inhumanity, like they don't care for her at all. There's lots of eye close-ups. Like I say, it's sort of a Vietnam-infused, atrocity-filled. Well, it's not really the atrocities. We don't really see a lot of them. We just imagine them. There's taxidermy is creepy, full stop. So like humans, armadillos, all different kinds of weird. It's kind of like outsider art kind of weirdness as well, which is very creepy. Like grave robbing and at the beginning. And it's a very important film, isn't it? So it's highly influential, incredibly well made, very effective. So I was going between 7 and 8, and I'm going to go for 8 out of 10.
Oh, nice. Okay. I'm going to match you on that because I've actually got down 8 as well. Oh. Yeah, just my reasons why. There's no denying that this is just a classic slasher. I mean, Leatherface is a global horror icon, and rightfully so. I mean, if you put yourself in those situations, there's not much scarier than being chased at night through the woods by a psycho killer with a chainsaw. And it's got a lot of feels to this film. And I know we mentioned earlier there's not much gore or swearing, nudity, and any of that stuff, but it's just the overall heaviness of the movie itself was enough to scare you, which I think is quite impressive, really. 1974, so definitely paved the way for future horrors to kind of like follow in its footsteps. So yeah, I mean, I love it, and I think it would be insulting to give it a low score. So yeah, personally, I think it deserves an 8 out of 10 at least. So yeah, that's what I'm sticking with, an 8 out of 10.
We've agreed.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time that happened.
It's very rare.
Maybe it's because it's an old film.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. All right, let's jump through some trivia.
Trivia. Oh yeah.
Yeah, so as mentioned earlier, it was filmed during a heat wave where the average temperature was over 100 degrees. A large portion was spent filming the dinner scene at the end. The room was filled with real dead animals and rotting food, no air condition, no electric fans. So everyone later recalled like the stench from the rotting food and people's body odour. It was so terrible that some crew members passed out or were sick just from the smell alone.
Oh, wow.
Edwin Neal, I think the guy that plays the hitchhiker, he's claimed that filming that scene was literally like the worst time of his life. And I think he was in Vietnam, he said as well. So,
oh, blimey. Yeah, I mean, you get that feel from it, though, don't you? You don't get the feel that anyone making it was like, oh, this was the best day of my life, like, oh, best time of my life. I really enjoyed it. I
know. And Gunnar Hansen just cut some woman's finger just to get it over with. Oh yeah, the close up of Leatherface cutting his own leg with a chainsaw. Gunnar Hansen, Leatherface, he was wearing like a metal plate over his leg, and they covered it with like a big slab of meat and a blood bag on it.
Oh. Should have just cut his own leg to be quicker. Why did you cut your own leg?
Well, you say that, but his scream the squeal that he does at the end, that was like a genuine little squeal that he did, because the chain that was hitting that metal plate, it was causing so much friction that it did actually burn his leg.
There you go. That's karma for cutting a finger.
Due to the low budget, Gunnar Hansen only had one shirt as Leatherface. The shirt couldn't be washed as it was dyed, so he had to wear it for 4 straight weeks in the hot and humid sun. By the end of the shoots, no one wanted to be near him because he smelt so bad.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those shirts that they maybe need to just put it in some sort of glass case somewhere for history, and or burn it, one of the two.
Yeah. Well, this is literally the same thing as well, because Marilyn Burns, her clothes were drenched in a load of fake blood, so come the last day of her shooting, it was like solid, completely solid from where the sun had like baked it on.
Nice.
Oh yeah,
I would struggle with that.
Yeah, that would be tough.
All the rest of it I'm fine with. But, yeah.
Lastly, what people took away from this movie was don't pick up hitchhikers. And crime dropped 18%, so Texas state troopers actually thanked Edwin Neal and shook his hand.
Yeah?
Yeah.
No, yeah, I mean, you're not going to have any problems with dodgy hitchhikers if you don't pick them up.
Yeah. Cool. Right, that's all the trivia I've got. So let's now jump into this week's game.
Play a game.
Right, this one I've called it Remember the Name, and if this was me, I would be absolutely useless at this because I cannot remember names. But basically, I'm gonna name some characters, and you got to tell me the actors that have played them.
Okay.
Yeah, I reckon you'll be good at this. Some of these are easy, but yeah, I would struggle. So first up, Nancy from A Nightmare on Elm Street.
So you're just wanting the actress's name?
Yes.
So Heather Langenkamp.
George Lutz from the Amityville Horror.
James Brolin. I nearly said Josh Brolin as well.
Yeah. Pinhead from Hellraiser.
Which one? From the first one.
Yeah, the original.
Doug Bradley.
Ooh. What about Judd Crandall from Pet Sematary?
Is that the old dude?
Yeah. Big
Fred
guy.
Gwynn? Yes.
Oh, are you going to get 8 out of 8 again?
No.
All right. Officer Dewey from Scream.
Oh, I met him, so absolutely.
Oh, yeah, you did.
David Arquette.
Oh, one left. Private Hudson from Aliens.
Bill Paxton.
Damn! 8 out of 8.
Bill Pullman.
That's it. That's the second time you've actually got full marks.
Wow. What a world. I'd like to thank Leatherface.
Cool, man. All right, let's go ahead and wrap up. So, next episode, I was thinking Drag Me to Hell. Have you seen that one?
Drag Ben to Hell.
Yeah.
And after I've done that... No, I've not seen that. Is it a new one?
I believe it was 2009, round about that time.
So yes, for me that is.
For you it is, yeah. Yeah, so we'll do that next week. And also, today I've put up the poll pick for the movie that we'll be doing after the next one. And that will be for remakes. 3 classic horror icons. And they've all had remakes. And they don't get a good rap. But they are Friday the 13th from 2009.
Okay, I've seen that once.
Halloween, Rob Zombie's one from 2007.
Seen that twice.
And A Nightmare on Elm Street from 2010.
Seen that once.
Okay.
But yeah, I was thinking maybe you'd be doing the remake of Suspiria, but it would be better for us to watch the original Suspiria first.
Yeah. So yeah, preference. What would you reckon out of those three?
Maybe the first one. What was the first one again? Sorry.
Friday the 13th.
Yeah, maybe because that's the one I don't remember anything about. The one I remember quite a bit about the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street and this. Sorry, what was the other one?
Halloween. Rob Zombie's
Halloween. I kind of remember it vividly, and it'd be a bit boring to watch it again. But I'd watch it again. I'll watch it again.
Yeah. I think I'm with you on that. I think I've only seen the Friday the 13th remake once. Yeah. I weren't a big fan of it, just because it was so different. I think he runs in that one, which kind of like, I don't know if it ruined it for me. It was just so different from old school Jason.
Yeah, it's like what's it? My Bloody Valentine 3D. It's that kind of feel around that sort of era, isn't it? Where all of these are kind of around that era where they're not as good. Mm-hmm. There's probably only Rob Zombies where it's got some originality. Like the My Bloody Valentine one, there's like one or two scenes that are quite cool, but generally it just doesn't live up to the originals. Whereas I guess they were just doing a lot of remakes in the sort of early 2000s, weren't they?
Yeah, they were. But personally,
some of them were okay, and some of them were pretty bad.
Personally, I really like Rob Zombie's Halloween. I didn't like the second one, but I actually really enjoyed his one.
I think gets a bad rap. He's got some originality there, though, hasn't he? Like his is a bit different.
Well, he does a full-on backstory for Michael as a child, so I thought that was really quite unique and completely takes it away from what we already know.
Yeah, it wasn't boring, and it was different, which is a good start. You know, rather than kind of... They were almost trying to make classic movies like Urban Legend or Scream, or, you know, they were trying to kind of make them into a sort of a teen... Yeah. That teen era. So, at least with Rob Zombies, it was a bit like the film we've just discussed, a bit grimy and dirty and strange and weird.
Yeah. Yeah, man. All right, cool. So
see what people choose. We'll watch anything.
Yeah, we'll find out next week. All right, so if you've liked today's episode and want to hear more, then go ahead and give us a follow on wherever you're listening from. You can find us on Facebook, as that's where we stick up the poll pics, and you can vote for what we do next. That's all for today, so thanks a lot for listening, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
We all go a little mad sometimes.